Me, Myself, and I, episode number 28. Chris, how do you spell your last name? And what's your favorite color? So, I appreciate you working with me on that, man.
Sometimes in life, things can come across as rather odd or often peculiar, a little like the way that you decide to tune into other radio stations other than ours.
Wishful thinking, been dreaming, it's my time to shine. Wanting, waiting, been hoping for a girl like you to know. I wanna get the girls I couldn't get before. I wanna be in a band, make that music. I wanna be in a band, kick those creeps. I wanna be in a band, smoke those dudes. I wanna be in a band.
If you enjoyed that introduction song, head on over to iTunes and pick it up. That's I Wanna Be in a Band by Lovestruck Robot off their debut album, I Wanna Be in a Band. You can download the entire album there, as well as their new single, Smoke Show. For more information, please visit lovestruckrobot.com. Good morning, good afternoon, hip hip hooray. This is Me, Myself, and I. I'm your host, Anthony Hayes. If you are not already doing so, please follow me on Twitter at @ahayes_MMI. I am also on Instagram, ahayes_MMI. And the newest addition to the Me, Myself, and I arsenal, Me, Myself, and I Radio on Facebook. And of course, when all else fails, head on over to the mothership, Me, Myself, and I Radio.com. Lots to talk about, less than half an hour to do it in. So, let's get into Me, Myself, and I, shall we?
I've been very solo up until like episode 25. It's just been more of like an audio documentary, but I've been realizing the value that others bring to the table, and you know, as many things as I can explore on my own and in my own time and put that out there for the audience. If I can filter in these guest interviews, I feel like I could bring the show and the listener base to such a greater mass of people. And I've got to connect with just so many good people, yourself included, that have so many interesting things to say. And I just want to take this opportunity today. We're joined by Chris Katzmann. He is the project manager at Podium. I can't wait to hear everything he has to say about this and get this information out to you guys, because there's a revolution happening, and Chris is behind all of that. Chris is 23 years old. He's a young cat. He's coming up, but don't let his age fool you, because what he lacks in age, he gains and is experienced in life, and maturity is on a different level than a lot of other people his age. He lives in Manhasset. Is that?
That's right,
Yeah.
Manhasset.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm a New York guy too.
Oh, really? Where in New York?
I'm from Westchester County.
Okay.
Yonkers. So
Cool.
And Chris studied at the prestigious Tulane University, which he just graduated, correct?
Yeah, I did. I graduated this past spring.
Awesome. Majored in philosophy and studied Buddhist theory. I love it.
Well,
Chris,
that's one of the many things I studied, but yeah, I think that definitely applies to your keep on flowing, just be philosophy.
Awesome. Chris, thanks so much for joining me today, man. I really appreciate it. One of the first things I like to talk with my guests about, and one of the first kind of icebreakers, is how did we meet? And I'll turn it over to you, Chris.
So, I guess we met through the Podcast Exchange group. Which is a great group, by the way. So many people in there have been, so willing to not only help me, but help everyone else out there on the group with what they're doing. And
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I really got to say that's a great group of people on there. So we met through there. I was looking for advice, feedback, help with the with Podium, with my social podcasting app that I am managing right now, or managing the project of. And you were nice enough to come on and show some interest, and you've already given me some pretty good feedback, and that's how we met.
Awesome. Yeah, man, absolutely. I love it. It's revolutionary. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of it once, the beta goes through and you guys do everything you need to do on your end with the, I just find the whole thing fascinating, creating an app and launching it. And I can only imagine the work that goes behind that. I mean, I know the work that goes behind just putting out a podcast, but to actually create an application. The work that goes into it is unfathomable to me. It really is.
Well, it's interesting because there's, several different phases, I guess, of creating an app. You got to start off with the conceptual part of it first. And, that starts by finding a need that needs to be filled somewhere. The need that I and my partner, actually, who is one of the few people that are actually working on this with me, need that we found initially was that there's not really an easy and very social way of sharing audio on the go. An audio for an Instagram of audio, if you will. Yeah. Since we started, there have been some more, things that have popped up like Clamor, although I don't necessarily, I don't think that we are exactly like Clamor. A lot of Clamor's whole deal is advertising podcasts. And that's not really what we're going for. Of course, you could use Podium to pitch your podcasts, but I just think that audio is such a powerful medium. And I mean, obviously, I think you do too. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on this podcast or working on this podcast right now.
Right, you are, man. The spoken word and thoughts are a very interesting avenue to pursue, to say the least. And I think, as a philosophy major, you definitely could concur with that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that a certain type of person responds to audio very well. A lot of people who I've found who listen to podcasts are doing it because they want to better themselves in some way. They actually have a real vested interest in learning from others. We see podcasts have been growing in popularity lately, but I think that it's just more of these types of people are discovering the value that they can get from listening to spoken word. And
sure,
what we want to do with Podium is not only encourage people to listen, but encourage people to speak as well. By making it really accessible to get your voice out there, we're hoping that, people who have valuable things to say won't be so intimidated or turned off by the thought of having to set up a whole podcast studio in their house, find hosting, and actually sit down and find guests and do a whole production show, which, obviously a whole fully produced show, you can get a ton of value out of there. But what about, when you're sitting in traffic on the way home, there's bumper to bumper traffic and you have a brilliant thought, or if you're just about to go to bed and you have something you want to share with the world, you can't exactly, go into your studio and start recording a podcast. So I guess Podium's, we're looking to just bring out the rawness of people who have something to share.
I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. That's what I've been seeing so far, little snippets. I know there's some guys in there talking about football and, just kind of testing the water, just seeing what it's all about. And I love that. I love that you guys, brought a small group of people in there that share similar interests and passions as you guys, and are getting this feedback and making these tweaks. And just to be a part of that, for me is very valuable, and I'd like to thank you for giving me that opportunity, because it's something that I've never been a part of. I've never got to experience, so to be able to witness it firsthand has been such a cool process so far, and I hope the feedback I've been giving has been valuable. I hope to give some more, as the time goes on, I get more chance to explore the app. But so far, it's been stellar, man. It really has.
Yeah, well, man, thank you so much. I'm glad that you are getting something out of it, because right now we've got the core functionality there. I promise you that there are two things in particular which I'm not allowed to talk about just yet that are going to really show why Podium is going to be valuable to everyone. But I also just want to say a little bit more about the rawness and encouraging people to get on there, no matter if they're podcasters or not. One of the guys on there, that guy Kai Gardner, actually was not a podcaster and hasn't done a podcast before until he started, until he got onto the project. He's interested in listening to podcasts, he does listen to podcasts, but the guy he's a younger guy. He's a student in the UK, and he was thinking about doing a podcast, but obviously, like I said, there's a little bit of barriers in the way, in terms of setting up your whole podcast studio, if you will, or whatever. Not that it's very hard to set up a podcast studio, but it is sort of a commitment that you have to go say, okay, I'm going to start a podcast now.
Yeah.
And you have to go out and you have to figure out everything that you need to do in order to do that. So what we see Podium doing is sort of like a conduit for people who are thinking about starting a podcast and, starting to just test out the waters, I guess. It's almost like, I'm thinking about starting a podcast, and then someone who knows Podium would say, why don't you just hop on Podium, see what you think, start testing it out.
Sure.
But then obviously from there, if you're already a podcaster, you can continue to use Podium to interact across social media, because we have the built-in Facebook and Twitter sharing. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I feel like I'm running on and on about Podium. Feel free to edit any of that stuff out.
No, that's cool, man. That's what it's all about, because this whole experience for me, personally speaking, has brought you and I together, and you and I here today, and we're exploring all these different avenues in our lives. And up until, a few weeks ago, aside from little bits and snippets here and there, I didn't even know who you were.
Yeah, I know.
So now we're here today. We're having, some mind-blowing intellectual conversation. The people are soaking it in. They want to get on Podium. So we're stirring up some waves of inspiration and things. So definitely, man, and that's what I wanted to get into. I would definitely also like to hear more about what brought you to today. What brought you to not only your existence as a person, but how that contributed to launching of Podium. And so let's back it up a little bit. What brought you through today? What kind of thought processes and obstacles did you overcome that you feel you had to do this? This was something that you set out to do. You wanted to make it happen. You clearly are, because Podium beta is out right now. So tell me a little bit about that process.
All right, so I've always been a pretty confident person in terms of my ability to make it, I guess, which is something that I think is important. If you want to find fulfillment in your life, I think you need to have goals.
Sure.
I always thought, oh, well, whatever my goal ends up being, I'll be able to figure it out. But because of that attitude, I think I got complacent about figuring out what that goal actually was.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
just a little young, cocky kid who, has trouble actually getting serious and, getting down to the bone about doing some hard work and actually finding out what your goals are.
So would you say the thought process is there, but the getting started thing is what he struggled with?
I think even just like the starting to think about what my goal was the problem. Because once I started figuring out what the goal was, then I was like, okay, you know what? Like, here's how I can do it. And then things started getting set in motion. But
Right.
it was almost like for a few years there, I was just not concerned about the future very much. And that led me to just not be taking myself as seriously as I should have. And then, after a few years of doing that, it's like, like I might be, if I keep up on this path, I might not actually do something awesome with my life. So then things started to sort of change for me, I guess. And
Would you say that the change in mindset started when you started studying in college in philosophy and been exploring a little bit more yourself?
I'd say a couple years in when I really started taking it more seriously. And I think that, yes, some of the readings that I was doing then, just the level of difficult thought and, applying that thought to writing about it in essays and, suddenly realizing that, the stuff I'm studying in school, fortunately, really applies to my real life.
Sure. Not a lot of people can say that, so that's good for you. You know that you went in the right direction the first time. And do you write? Do you blog at all?
I write for myself, actually.
Okay. Have you ever thought of starting a blog?
I have. I'm probably I think I mentioned to you that I'm gonna be starting a podcast later this year, and I think blog and podcast are gonna accompany each other.
Yeah, I've seen and I've experienced firsthand that they almost go hand in hand. It really really supports the other because sometimes you can't always get that thought out right away, and what you do is you go back and reflect on it later, and so much more comes flowing out of you that if you have that other avenue to express it in through blogging, you can almost make your blog an extension of your podcast.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. At least for me, that's what I've done with blogging and stuff like that. I try to relate that to the show and kind of help them support each other and support me and my thoughts. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of if you're going to look at it from just a growth standpoint of your podcast, then having a blog to accompany it is a great idea, and vice versa as well. But then, why is that? It's because you're actually providing content that links up to what you're talking about that people want to actually read. So you can supply value to your audience, to your listeners, and it just gets multiplied when you use both of those avenues.
Yeah, definitely. Well, if you want to kind of, I'm just throwing this out there, I'm putting you on the spot, but if you want to start to explore the avenue of blogging, I'd love to have you write a guest blog post anytime you want on a variety of topics. It's all on the website. And if any of that relates to you, you're more than welcome to fire off some thoughts, man, and get it out of your head, because better on paper or on the screen than just rolling around upstairs and going nowhere, you know what I mean? Just need to get it out sometimes.
Let's do it.
Cool.
I'm totally on board. This is awesome.
Awesome. I could definitely send you the information for that, and at your leisure, you take a look at it or whatever if it's something you're into. That's cool. I think you have a lot of interesting things to say. I'd be very curious to hear you expand on it. I know just going back and forth in Facebook Messenger, you've shared some pretty cool thoughts. You've shared some book, some excerpts from books and things like that. And that's pretty cool that you and I share that same like-minded connection with that. So I like to definitely hear more about what you have to say about that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm sure you're aware by now. I love writing about that stuff. Love talking about this stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think that's actually what drew me to philosophy, was because I just found myself naturally thinking this way. And then, took some philosophy courses trying to figure out what I wanted to study in college, what I wanted to major in. And I was like, wait, I'm good at this. I think this way naturally. And it can be a little much sometimes because I can't turn it off all the time. I'll be laying awake in bed, and then I'll have to grab my iPad or a pen and paper and start writing stuff out.
You have to get that out, man.
And half the time I read it the next day, I'm like, oh my God, where are you going with this? You're searching for the fabric of existence right now, and you're supposed to be going to sleep here.
That's what it's all about, man. That's great. That's really great. That's one of my recommendations to my listeners is, fall asleep with a pen and a pad next to your bed every night. Yeah.
I mean,
use it for those instances that you just spoke about. Use it to. I actually shared this with somebody the other day. They were, concerned about being productive in the day and falling asleep and then waking up and getting their day started. So I told them, get a pen and a paper. Don't use your phone, because you'll get sidetracked. You'll get on Facebook or Twitter and start goofing around. And get a pen and paper, make it raw, and write down what your intentions are for the next day or whatever thoughts you're having. And when you wake up with that fresh perspective, that's going to be the first thing you look at. And it's going to set your intentions for the entire day, and you'll definitely be more productive.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I actually think that's two things. I think that doing that, especially, I think that writing, especially right before going to sleep, is something that really helped me overcome that sort of immaturity that we had talked about. Mm-hmm. Because it sort of forces you to, instead of letting these thoughts run around your head and eventually just, trying to push them away, it forces you to confront them and then plan for them. Plan on how to act on them.
I love that.
That's been huge for me. You said you recommend people to do that. I also recommend people to do that. And, I think that is a great resource. I think that writing is a great way to make use of your kind of ultimate resource, which is yourself, and your own thoughts. Because at the end of the day, you have the world, you have the external world, you have your own thoughts, and then you have the way that they connect. I think in one of your previous episodes, you had mentioned that quote about people who can see the world not for what it is, but for what it could be.
Wow. Yeah.
And yeah,
thanks for remembering that.
Yeah, I think that one really stuck with me. I've heard it before, but definitely that was a really good thing for you to say, because right there is the that's the turning point of where you go from just being part of the world and then being yourself, and then using yourself to change the world. If that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to have a ton of quotes to quote you on in the show notes. So
yeah, so that's cool, man. Thank you.
So you'd say, as far as resources go, that one resource you'd recommend would definitely be writing. The thing is,
it would be the pen and paper, like we said, but really the resource is you. And that kind of goes along with your me, myself, and I theme here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, tapping into what's inside of you allows you to, get past just, it allows you to explore yourself in more detail, let's say. So writing out what your thoughts are, once you have the first couple paragraphs down, then all of a sudden you can really think more structurally about what your thoughts are what's going on in your head. And then, make connections from there and keep branching off. Now, you could write paragraphs, you could make diagrams, people do it in all sorts of different ways, but I think that ultimately what it boils down to is being able to sort of take a step back and observe yourself.
You just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
That was the first installment of 2, Getting Philosophical with Chris Katzmann. Please tune in 2 weeks from today to hear the conclusion of the show.
Whether you're listening on Spreaker, iTunes, or Stitcher, your input and feedback and rating the show would be greatly appreciated. If you have any other things you want to discuss, comments, questions, concerns, please email me at ahayes@memyselfandradio.com. Thanks a lot. As always, at the end of every show, we'd like to urge you, no matter what the rest of your day brings, control the controllable. As for the rest, keep on flowing and just be. This has been Me, Myself, and I. Thanks for tuning in.
Tell me what to do.